Hi friends, welcome back to 5 Minute Modern. My name is Cindy, and today we're talking about legendary artist David Hockney. Hockney sadly passed away on Friday, June 12th at the age of 88. He was one of the greatest artists of his generation, achieving widespread popularity and critical success. He is perhaps the most iconic painter of Los Angeles, responsible for some of the most beautiful and emblematic images of the city. But Hockney actually originally hails from across the pond in England. Born to a working-class family in Yorkshire in 1937, Hockney showed an early talent for painting, which eventually earned him a spot at the prestigious Royal College of Art in 1959. Though he was a figurative artist, Hockney disliked the life drawing classes he had at the Royal College of Art. In his telling, the models were all full-figured and older women, but what he really wanted to paint was beautiful young men. Hockney had known he was gay from a young age and pined for an escape from the repressive atmosphere of England. Although the start of the famous swinging 60s in London brought greater liberation for heterosexual expression, homosexuality was still illegal and staunchly oppressed. Hockney got a taste of the gay life when he visited New York in 1961, but it was Los Angeles that continued to exert a magnetic pull on his imagination. Partially, Hockney was inspired by the 1963 novel City of Night by John Recchi, which chronicled the gay hustler scene in downtown LA. But even more than City of Night, which offered a grittier view of gay life, Hockney was inspired by the fantasy portrayed in Physique Pictorial, a softcore homoerotic magazine which featured scantily clad but well-muscled men, and which was printed in Los Angeles. Hoping to find some well-muscled men of his own, Hockney came to Los Angeles in 1964. Looking out the window as his airplane landed in LA, Hockney noticed the endless rows of backyard swimming pools, sparking what would become a lifelong preoccupation in his work. If there's one thing that I think is underrated about Hockney, it's his talent as a formalist. That is, a master of using the shapes, colors, and compositions, the basic visual forms that are the building blocks of a painting. We can see this in Hockney's swimming pools, where he experimented with differences of line and color to capture the precise effect of water in motion as it reflects light. He often worked with acrylic rather than oil paint, as the former dries more quickly, enabling him to work faster as he tried to capture the precise visual effect he noticed. Hockney also plays with the dimensionality of his forms, often flattening the water and the background into a two-dimensional space, while rounding his figures out into a full 3 dimensions. For historian Cécile Whiting, this tension perhaps reflects Hockney's search for self-expression as a gay man. The two-dimensional spaces call our attention to the artificiality of the image, reminding us of the fantasy of gay life that Hockney pictured while in England. Yet the three-dimensional figures showed that this idealized fantasy was, to at least some degree, available to Hockney in Los Angeles. Within no time, he was living the California good life his artwork had come to symbolize. Though much of gay society was still living on the margins in the years before Stonewall, Hockney's image of gay community was considerably more bourgeois. Rather than falling in with the gritty gay hustler scene depicted in City of Night, Hockney developed a friendship with people like Christopher Isherwood and Don Bacardi. The former was a successful novelist whose chronicle of pre-war Berlin nightlife became the basis for the musical Cabaret, and the latter was an artist himself. Comfortably upper middle class, the couple lived in Tony, Santa Monica, where home ownership afforded them a level of privacy and protection from police harassment unavailable to street hustlers. It's worth pointing out that this was a lifestyle that was largely unavailable to working-class gay men, queer and trans women, or people of color. But at least for the narrow group of white gay men, Hockney's work was liberating, offering them a vision of the Southern California good life that was previously reserved for heterosexuals. Contemporary critics of the 60s often positioned Hockney's work as superficial, symbolic of the vapid beauty obsession that is chief among negative stereotypes of Los Angeles. There was a great deal of homophobia to some of this criticism, but it is true that Hockney's work carries none of the cultural criticism embedded in the ironic paintings of his contemporary Andy Warhol. Hockney's project as a painter was not to critique or dismantle the idealized image of LA, but rather to celebrate it with formally beautiful paintings. Hockney's formal mastery and the easily recognizable beauty of his finished works are perhaps why he is often credited with inspiring the return of figurative painting. As abstract expressionism fizzled out in the mid-60s and gave way to minimalism on the one hand and pop on the other, Hockney's work charted a third path, setting aside the minimalist concern with materiality and the pop concern with underlying philosophy and critique. Hockney refocused attention on the image itself, crafting paintings that are light on commentary but rich with stunningly beautiful visual details. In a way, for all his experimentation with forms and the queerness of his expression, Hockney was, at his heart, a classical painter like those of antiquity, for whom concept was secondary to technique and the highest ambition for artwork was beauty. There's certainly a lot more to cover with Hockney, who continued painting nearly until his death. If you'd like to see more videos about other periods of Hockney's career, please let me know in the comments down below. But I hope this video provided a good introduction to the work of this amazing artist, and as always, I hope you enjoyed it and I hope you learned something new. Please remember to like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.